What if moving abroad the way everyone has been telling you on the internet, selling everything, cutting all ties, renouncing your citizenship, applying for asylum, essentially burning it all down, was actually the worst thing you could do? And what if America was actually counting on you to leave? What if the all or nothing formula wasn't liberation, but a trap designed for the most capable Americans? I'm an attorney. I have court deadlines. I have clients who need me physically present for signings, and I have a law practice in New York. And I've been running it since 2018. I didn't blow up my life, I expanded it. And I need you to hear what I'm about to say before you make a decision you cannot reverse. Let me tell you who the all or nothing, burn down everything and move abroad formula captures. It's not random people. It's not disengaged people. It's not for the people who are already checked out and barely participating. It captures frustrated professionals, the entrepreneurs, the creative class, the middle class, the people with enough initiative and resources to actually execute a move, the financially literate, the educated, the mobile, but also the people most dissatisfied enough with the status quo to want something different and who are capable enough to do something about it. In other words, that lure, the seductivity of that message to burn down your life captures precisely the people a society needs to self-correct. The builders, the questioners, the educated class, the ones who push back against the status quo, the ones most likely to demand better, the ones most likely to stay and fight for something different. And the all of nothing formula walks directly up to those people at their most frustrated, when the country feels most broken, most expensive, most politically exhausting, and it says leave completely, permanently, burn the bridge on your way out, and let the light from the flames light your path. And anything less means you're not actually free. And many of those people listen because it's so seductive. It feels like liberation. It feels like the ultimate act of resistance to whatever the US represents, and also the ultimate act to represent self-determination and autonomy. And it's kind of like a you know what to the United States. It's like, I got out, screw you, the United States. And it feels like you chose yourself and your family and you're winning at the game of life. But watch what actually happens. You burn down everything, you quit the job, you sell the house, you abandon the clients, you let the professional license lapse, you close the US bank accounts, you sever the financial ties, and you get on a plane with a one-way ticket, a laptop, and a feeling of absolute freedom. And then reality arrives. You start freelancing and relocating simultaneously. There's no stability, there's no support, just vibes and Wi-Fi. The income doesn't materialize as fast as the lifestyle content made it look. And so your anxiety spikes and you're burning through savings in a foreign country while navigating immigration paperwork in a language you don't fully speak, while also trying to build a client base from scratch, while trying to figure out where to live, while realizing the deposits are non-refundable and the contracts are fully enforceable against you, and then. And so with that, you become desperate. You make desperate decisions because desperate people make desperate decisions. You sign the wrong lease, or you don't verify the information in the lease. You hire the wrong contractor. You overstay your visa by accident because the timeline was nothing like what the government website said. And so you get hit with penalties you didn't know that existed. You run out of money. And then you're forced to come back to the US. Not just back to America. You come back diminished. You spent your savings. Your professional relationships went cold. Your clients moved on, and your license may have lapsed. Your credit also took a hit. And so you come back dejected and also behind, not only metaphorically, but actually financially, logistically. You're behind on your taxes that you didn't file, that you didn't know that you had to pay attention to while you were abroad because no one told you your passport follows you everywhere. And the IRS does not care what country you're in. So you come back embarrassed, dejected, exhausted, and broke, and you have to start over. And guess who wins? I know this is going to sound like conspiracy theory, but guess who wins? America wins twice. Why is that? Here's what I mean. America wins the first time when you leave unprepared and failed because you took yourself, one of the most capable, most motivated, most frustrated people in the country, and you essentially neutralized yourself. You're not building anything. You're not demanding anything. You're not pushing back against anything. You're just trying to recover when you come back. And so when you come back, America wins the second time when you come back, and then you become the cautionary tale because you didn't just fail individually. You take down everyone around you who was watching and hoping, your friends, your family, the people in your community who were quietly inspired by what you were doing and thinking maybe they could do it someday too. And so they watched you go. They watched you also come back. And now they have a real life example of why it doesn't work because I've heard it too. Once someone comes back, the mantra becomes, oh, well, it didn't work out. It's impossible. And so you don't just stop. You also actively discourage the next person from trying. The all or nothing formula doesn't just fail people individually, it creates a self-replicating cycle of discouragement that spreads through entire communities. One failed attempt at total departure takes down dozens of potential future attempts because this is all psychological. And who benefits from that? Think about it carefully. Who benefits from the most capable, most motivated, most frustrated Americans neutralizing themselves and then discouraging everyone around them from trying? This is the question nobody in the move abroad space is asking because they're too busy selling you a dream. Now, let me take this even further because I want you to sit with something uncomfortable. What if this isn't accidental? I remember my mother telling me years ago, maybe even before COVID or during COVID, and she said, America does nothing by accident. Everything is so planned down to the T. So even if something looks like chaos, it is organized chaos. Create a problem and sell a solution. So what if this all or nothing narrative, whether by design or structural incentive, functions as a purge, a self-selecting purge of exactly the people most likely to cause disruption, demand change, build alternatives, or refuse to participate in a system that don't serve them. So think about what that all or nothing formula actually asks people to do. Renounce citizenship, sever financial ties, liquidate U.S. assets, abandon professional licenses, stop voting, stop participating, stop caring, and stop pushing back. The most capable people self-select out voluntarily, enthusiastically, while being cheered on by lifestyle content that profits from their departure. And no force is required. It's just bad advice at the right moment delivered by attractive people in beautiful location. The frustrated professionals leaves, the entrepreneurs leave, the creative class leaves, the builders leave, the questioners leave, the people most likely to demand better, gone permanently by choice. And the country doesn't have to do anything except let the algorithm run. I'm not saying this to discourage you from moving abroad. I'm telling you to think very carefully about who benefits from you burning the bridge completely on your way out. And then I think about what if America actually gets its act together? This is what actually keeps me up at night. What's the end game with all of this catastrophe and fiasco and chaos that's happening? What is the end game? But we've seen this before in American history. This country has had several bad decades, painful decades that felt like permanent decline and turned out to be precursors to something different. History is not linear. Countries do course correct, and new leadership emerges, policy changes, economic cycles turn. The thing that felt permanent turns out to have been a chapter. And so what happens to the person who renounces their citizenship at the peak of their frustration? They're now a foreign national trying to re-enter a country that has no legal obligation to take them back. And the renunciation is essentially permanent. And for anyone who renounced with significant assets, the exit tax can be financially devastating. You pay to leave permanently. And America, that you left, that you felt irredeemably broken, is now thriving, changed, corrected, possibly the country that you knew it had the potential to become. And you missed it, not because you moved abroad. Moving abroad is smart. But what I'm a proponent of having options, that's what the American passport gives you, to have options, to have flexibility. Moving abroad is strategic. Moving abroad is exactly what I'm teaching and exactly what I'm doing, but I'm not burning down anything in order to do it. I'm bridging my life in the US to build a life somewhere else so that I can have security, so that my family can have security. So those who are caught up in the rapture of your freedom means only leaving and not returning back. It's essentially like weaponizing your new life. Your commitment to the new life was weaponized to mean the destruction of your old life and your home. And those are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. And someone told you they were, and that is someone, whether they knew it or not, that was not working in your best interest. And that is why I'm a proponent of the monkey bar method. I mentioned this in my earlier video. Do you remember the monkey bars when you were children? But essentially, you held on to one monkey bar and you didn't release that arm until you actually were secure with the next monkey bar. And that's what I did. That's what I'm a proponent of teaching. I'm a proponent of educating you so that you can have the best options. That is what I'm living. I kept everything, my practice, my clients, my home, my license, my US passport, the right to move from one country to another, the right to return, the right to participate in whatever this country has coming next. And I did that while securing a property in another country. And I'm a proponent of that because of the cost of buying property in the US is just cost prohibitive for me. I have student loans. I didn't want to end up owing close to $1 million at the end of the day because real estate in the US, especially New York, California, and certain states, is just extremely expensive. And so I made the choice to renovate it slowly, to go back and forth, to deal with my residency, to do it slowly. And that's why I call it the monkey bar method. And this is how an intelligent person does these things. You move abroad light, find a place, buy it affordably, or look for an apartment for a short-term lease. You test things out without having to absolutely destroy your previous life. It's not a zero-sum game. It never was. Someone told you it was, and that is a lie. And that lie has cost people everything. Before you move abroad, whether you're doing it at once or building it slowly the smart way, here's what you actually need to know that no one in the lifestyle content will tell you. And this is not about fear. This is just about being a sensible adult and knowing what your tax responsibilities are and your obligations are. It's not just that you move abroad and you're done and over with it. America wants to know what you're doing. So you have tax obligations that follow you everywhere. The United States is one of only 2 countries in the world that taxes based on citizenship rather than residency. So it doesn't matter what country you live in, your passport is what triggers this obligation. In addition, FATCA, I mentioned it in previous videos, and I'll link those videos too. There's also state taxes in states like New York and California that will still claim you if you haven't properly severed ties. And none of that pauses because you got on a plane. And there's some workarounds to paying less taxes, even if that is your home state, which I discuss more in my Move Abroad course, where I actually develop strategies for people who want to live outside of the US, pay taxes outside of the US, but also understand that the state tax obligation may be hefty and what the workaround for that is. Also, you want to know about the enforceability of foreign contracts. You're going to enter some sort of foreign contract, whether it's a lease agreement or a business agreement. You want to know the implications of that. If you're renovating a home, I drafted a bilingual 17-article renovation contract for my own property in Italy because the standard protections Americans expect simply do not exist in the same way in Italian civil law. So I made sure I drafted something that I will feel comfortable with as an attorney that can protect me, and I could provide that as a guide for you as well. Yeah, because I ran up against resistance. If you look at another video I did, I still had to fight for my own money back from an architect that took my deposit and went silent for weeks. So imagine navigating that without any legal background. And so I know this video is more so philosophical rather than legal, but I do want to provide this background information because I started this channel years ago only to help people to spread awareness, to give people legal information that historically is hidden behind a paywall. And so I come on here week to week and I give this information for free. I am not monetized on YouTube, so I have no incentive other than to help people and to provide guidance. I truly have a generous heart in that respect. And I see how not knowing legal aspects of things can devastate someone. So that is why I present this information. And so I need you to understand something before you make a decision you cannot reverse. The all of nothing formula is not never liberation. It's a trap. It's designed, whether intentionally or structurally, to take the most capable, most motivated, most frustrated Americans and neutralize them permanently at the moment of their highest potential. Don't renounce your U.S. citizenship. Don't burn the bridge. Don't let go of the bar until your hand is on the next one. And you could do all of that while moving abroad, while building something real, keeping your options, and playing the long game. Because if America gets its act together, and it might, you want to be the person who expanded into two worlds, not the person who traded permanent optionality for temporary relief from frustration. And again, I am not talking you out of moving abroad. I just want to make sure that if you go, you actually stay and that you never lose the right to come back and that you are secure as possible when you do move abroad. And here's something to also to think about. What if the most skilled professionals in the workforce in the US, the entrepreneurs who built their businesses and who employ people, professionals, creative, advocates, innovators, essentially the middle class that hold up the United States. What if those people actually were the ones that built this life, that built a sense of security, unlike generations before, security in the US as well as security in another country, rather than contribute to what is a brain drain? Because a brain drain is not linear. Talented people attract other talented people. They build networks. They create opportunities that pull others up. They mentor, they invest, they hire, they build institutions. But if this segment of the population builds essentially tentacles in two different countries, they create a whole ecosystem rather than the inverse. Like all that potentiality is lost because they burn down the prospect in the US and they essentially may burn, they have less potential in the new country because they have less stability. So if we think about doing the inverse of building strong businesses in the US that allow us to live remotely, those people build such a robust framework of networks, of opportunities, creating their own ecosystem. Rather than historically, we see what happens with brain drain. This is not theoretical. Countries that have experienced significant brain drain don't just lose talented individuals, they lose decades of development. Some never recover. Those countries that lost their professional class, their educated class, their entrepreneurial class to immigration became dependent, underdeveloped, and increasingly unable to generate the conditions that would attract talent back. And so Americans not immune to this pattern just because it was previously the destination for everyone else's brain drain. What America built its greatness substantially on absorbing the brain drain of other countries, the frustrated, the ambitious, the capable, who couldn't thrive where they were. They came to the US. That was the engine. The country was literally constructed on imported human capital, some by force, many by force, and some who came voluntarily because of economic reasons or because of war. And now that formula is being sold to frustrated Americans. It's the exact same playbook that historically gutted the countries those earlier immigrants fled. Now, America is now potentially doing to itself what is benefited from other countries doing to themselves. And so you follow the all or nothing formula. You're not just potentially destroying your own future, you're participating voluntarily, enthusiastically in the hollowing out of a country that, dare I say, needs you more than it is currently willing to admit. Now, the most sophisticated move is not to leave completely, it's to expand, to build in two worlds simultaneously, to keep the right to return, to keep the right to participate, to keep the right to be a part of whatever this country becomes next. Because if America recovers, like I say, and it probably will, it will need people who kept their hands on both bars, not the people who let go completely at the moment of maximum frustration. Don't be the drain, be the bridge. That is what this channel is about. That is what Legally Abroad is about. That's the entire mission of this channel. How can I help Americans figure out their options as seamlessly as possible and prepare them for what is on the other side? So this goes back to my initial question. What if the conditions that made America frustrating enough to trigger the all or nothing impulse were not accidental? What if economic anxiety, political exhaustion, cultural fraction, institutional distrust, healthcare crisis, what if all of these conditions were at least partially cultivated, not necessarily by a single coordinated plan, but the cumulative effects of poor policies, narratives, and incentive structures that disproportionately burden exactly the most people most likely to leave. And the person most likely to follow the all or nothing formula is not the person at the bottom who cannot leave. And is not the person at the very top who owns the system and has everything and every reason to stay. It's the person in the productive middle, the professional, the entrepreneur, the educated, the mobile, the person with enough resources to execute, but not enough entrenchment and not enough ownership into the system. That person is the most dangerous person to concentrated power because they have enough to lose that they pay attention and enough to gain that they can push for change, enough mobility that they can build alternatives, and enough voice that others listen to them. That's you and me. And getting that person to leave feeling dejected, feeling unpatriotic is the single most effective thing power could engineer. And it doesn't require conspiracy, it just requires making their life frustrated enough that the exit looks like the obvious answer, and then making sure the exit is designed to be permanent. These conditions that's happening that I just mentioned, healthcare crisis, economic collapse, political distrust in institutions, the student loan crisis, housing affordable crisis, I could go on and on and on. It's tied to the bedrock of our existence as Americans. These are not random. They're cumulative. Their cumulative effect is to make the middle, the most dangerous class, dejected, maximally miserable, and maximally mobile simultaneously. Miserable enough to want to leave, mobile enough to actually do it. And then the all or nothing narrative is right there waiting, cheered on by content that profits from departure, amplified by algorithms that reward engagement with aspiration, and validated by a community of people who already left and need you to leave too, so their choice feels correct. The pipeline is perfect. Manufacture frustration in the most capable and mobile. Offer a narrative of total departure as the only real freedom, and capture their permanent exit as peak frustration. And no one has to coordinate it. So that is why I have this channel. Making people desperate is the enemy of resistance. The person who burned everything down, who's anxious, who's broke, they're not pushing back against anything. They're surviving. The person who kept everything and expanded, they have stability to actually do something meaningful, to vote, to organize, to build, to speak, to model something different. That is why they want you desperate. Desperation is truly the enemy of resistance. I know this sounds like conspiracy theory. Let me know your questions if you have any commentary regarding this. I will see you next time. Bye bye.